we find a blog, or whatever it is, it says, all right, real estate is the path. How did you actually make it tangible though? Right? Did you just go out and buy a house? Like, let's talk
Oh,
through, yeah,
no.
from idea state to, hey,
Yeah.
we're under contract on our first one.
Yep. It was so I kept my 9 to 5. I kept that source of income, which I would suggest everybody do. If you're going to get into something like this, especially if you have something that's paying you and you can do this on the side, stay there. Do that until you can get to that point where it makes sense to take the leap. It's not just a blind leap because you're going to end up poor and broke and pissed. Um, so what I did was every day after I was done with my 9 to 5, I started just calling real estate agents. I would call for 4 or 5 hours, like till 9 p.m. It was stupid looking back, but I was calling real estate agents saying, "Hey, you got any deals? Hey, you got any deals? Hey, you got any deals? Hey, my name's Ben. I just want to keep that conversation or start that conversation that I'm looking for deals or mentorship or whatever." I think that the main thing that a lot of people try to do is learn everything possible before they actually jump into it. And the way that I tell people now how to get into real estate is just up the number of conversations you have about real estate. Whatever industry you're trying to get in, you just have to up the conversations, get around people that are constantly talking about these things so you can absorb as much information as possible. And that was really the path that I took. Was I went to meetups as many as I could. I talked to as many people as I could about real estate. I did the whole studying and all that stuff in the background, but that was just to supplement some of the learning that I didn't understand from some of these meetups and stuff. And they would talk about ROI or ARV. I didn't know what the hell it meant, so I went back and studied those things. And I think that's a good way to look at it for a lot of people who are trying to get into a business like this.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. We obviously in our business we have KPIs. And usually the KPI is tracking what you need to ultimately get the result. A lot of times you're not tracking the result, right? And the
For
result
sure.
in this scenario is like, I want to buy my first house. I want to buy 20 houses. I want to be a
Yep.
millionaire. But really, the KPI for getting into something like that ends up being the reps. Like, especially with people
Yeah,
right
be
now,
process oriented, not just
yeah.
outcome oriented.
So this will film. This will record early 2024. So it's kind of your goal setting type things. It's like, all right, at the end of the year, what do I need to be a better real estate investor that will move me closer? And it's like, I got to do this 100 times. I got to talk to 100 people. I got to go to 25 meetups. I have to read these 7 books that everyone's been telling me I should read. Like, it's those reps are the true KPI for people. And I loved how you worded it that way. So I'm happy you said that.
All
Yeah,
right, so
for
Ben, are
sure.
you in Arizona for this, or are you in Kansas City? Where are you?
I'm
Where are
in
you starting to look?
I'm in Kansas City. I moved back from Arizona once I got a job offer to come build an acquisitions department for a guy back here in KC. So I did that for a while. And then about 5 years ago, branched off and started doing this on my own.
All right,
Well,
so
I have a business partner, but yeah.
you have you're on your home turf here.
Hmm.
So we're calling agents. I'm assuming we finally get something under contract. Just talk to us through maybe those first couple deals. Like, what are you doing? Are you taking them down and renting them? Are you flipping them? Like, what was that original strategy?
It was all wholesale. That was the main goal of everything that I tried to do was just find a buyer, find a buyer, find a buyer. And I remember my very first opportunity at a deal. I had a Google Voice number back in those days when you don't know shit about shit. I had a Google Voice number, and this guy calls me. He goes, "Hey, my parents' house. I inherited it, and it's a hoarder house." I'm like, "Okay, perfect." So I show up, walking through the house. It is just wrecked. Like, it is awful. And I'm like, "Okay, dude, I'll get you an offer tomorrow." So I had built a relationship with a guy who was a buyer, and he goes, "Yeah, dude, any deals you get, bring them to me. I'll buy them from you." So I sent him the numbers. I sent him the address. He goes, "Okay, based on where you talked to him about potentially being in the number range, get it for this. I'll pay you 40 grand. Be good to go." I'm like, perfect. He goes, "Send me the photos first, though." I didn't take a single photo. So I had to try to go back and take photos. And I call the guy back. I'm like, "Hey, man, I forgot to bring my camera that day, just trying to make something up to get myself back in the door." And he knew right away. He's like, "You're a rookie, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep, sure am." So ended up losing out on that deal. And that was the last time I ever forgot to take photos.
Good lesson there, everyone.
Yeah, for sure. $40,000 lesson.
All right, so but you go in with the intent to wholesale these first couple deals,
Mm-hmm.
and how are you finding the the people in distress? Like, what are you just making phone calls? Like, I know you have this whole system and process now, but in those early
Yeah,
days, this is very valuable to some of our listeners who are looking to
for
get off
sure.
the ground. What were you
Yeah.
doing to come across leads?
Well, in the early days, it was drive through neighborhoods, and I had a voice to text notes file in my phone, and I was just speaking the addresses into a notes file. So I would drive around and look for overgrown bushes, or like some people would put aluminum foil on the windows, or the roofs were in terrible condition. The yard was a mess. And I would just speak these addresses into a notes file on my phone. And when I got home, I would hand type out every address into an Excel spreadsheet. And then I had found somebody who would handwrite envelopes for me on Craigslist. So I would go drop off a box of letters and envelopes with postage stamps to this lady's house, and she would handwrite all the envelopes, stuff the mail, and send them out. And that was how I got the first couple deals.
How do you keep her in check? How do you know she's actually sending them out? Like, is that just a photo of like, hey, here's me walking to the mailbox? Like,
I back then I had no plan for that. I was just hoping that she was sending them out, and I was sending her a paycheck. I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, just dive on, go a little deeper on that, because what made you delegate to her? I mean, most people will go in and just start doing that themselves and taking all that time. Like, what triggered in your mind that I need to outsource some of this?
Man, I had a 9 to 5. I couldn't handwrite hundreds and hundreds of envelopes. Like, I had to do something to send some part of it off to somebody else. And I ran across an investor down there who was using the same lady to do similar stuff, but she wasn't actually driving around. She was just sending out handwritten stuff. So I met a person one time. So that was the trust that I had in the handwritten lady.
So the time pressure, man, sometimes that's about some of the best things I'm skilled at is because I didn't have a choice but to do that early on.
Yeah.